Бля, опять все просрал.
Пробовал уже кучу сайтов. Везде какие-то проблемы с выводом. Что-то тут не так.
Потому что на этих казиках ты выбираешь случайные варианты. Есть проверенные казино с прозрачными условиями и отличной репутацией. В этих казиках всегда честные правила и стабильные выплаты. Всегда проверяй рейтинг и отзывы, это главное. Не забудь про бонусы для новичков.
What did a typical day look like for you back then?
Well, usual farm kid stuff, I guess. You'd be out picking rocks or weeding the garden or chasing cows around or any multitude of stuff. You made sure that you had something.
What are some of your strongest memories of growing up in Flagstaff County?
Oh man, a lot of fond memories growing up in Flagstaff. You know, the people, a huge thing growing up. And it didn't matter where you're going, whether you're in the grain truck or driving the pickup truck, you always knew somebody you're waving at or smiling at or talking to. You know, go to the elevator and the elevator boys, they're always something to chat about while you're unloading a load of wheat or anything like that. And you know, just the countryside around there, still it has a real dear place in my heart. Just looking back, just driving over those rolling hills and the people that are all around you, you always knew you're in a safe place.
Do you get back much then?
Don't get back much as I'd like to, but got lots of friends and family out that way, so I like to get out there a few times a year and go touch base and make sure everyone's doing all right.
So, what kind of kid were you? Were you always hands-on, outdoorsy, curious?
You know, I was a shy little fella there for a while, but I was always outdoorsy and hands on. I like being outside. I like being around dad or anything that was going on out in the shop or in the yard. Lots of time just exploring. You know, there's lots of space out in Flagstaff. So, you know, if a guy wasn't out hunting gophers or something, you're building a fort or doing something. But I always liked operating any kind of stuff. You know, start out in the lawn tractors and little stuff, and before you knew it, you know, Dad threw you in the tractor. So,
Yeah.
you know, that kind of stuff was always I liked that stuff as a kid.
Who were the biggest influences in your early life?
Well, I had a couple really good ones actually. So my grandfather, Pat Harris, he was a county foreman there actually at Flagstaff County for years, and you know, he started out as a mechanic and kind of worked his way up, and you know, he's running road crews and all sorts of stuff, and just watched him grow up. Like he has always had a huge amount of knowledge for mechanical stuff and just kind of know how. And my dad also a big influence. You know, he's a private pilot, still is, and he was going for his night rating, and I still remember him. You know, just going through some of his stuff and getting ready for it. So that's when it kind of, you know, popped up and bit me that, and actually have the means and maybe the time to do it.
So was there like a specific moment where that really clicked for you?
I just recall just waking up one day. You know, I had a couple of friends from out that way that we were all kind of talking about it, and like, you know what? Maybe we should just do this. You know, like let's just go and do our ground school. So it was kind of, it wasn't anything real planned, anything. It was almost a spur of the moment. Let's try this out, see how it goes.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So did you know anyone in aviation growing up, or were you kind of figuring this out on your own?
Well, of course, my dad there, he has private license, but we never had a plane. So whenever we
Oh,
went somewhere, we'd, you know, borrow a plane from from someone he knew. And but I always remember the aerial applicators growing up. You know,
Mhm.
Vern Snethen out that way, Harvey Abbott, Lynn Stedman, all those guys were flying. And you know, in the summertime, especially when they're doing their spraying, they'd go over the house, going from here to there, and you'd hear those big radials come over the house, and you'd do everything you could to run outside if you weren't always out there and just looking up and see if you catch a glimpse of these guys. You know, I
Oh yeah.
those are exciting times, and one of those guys would come over the house.
So at that stage of your life, did becoming a pilot feel realistic or more like a far off dream?
I have to say it was probably it's kind of a far off dream. You know, having a private license was that to me would have been the holy grail. You know, just even
Yeah.
being able to get up and go. Uh, where I've taken it now, at that time I never would have fathomed this would happen. To be
Well,
honest,
so do you remember your first time in a plane?
yeah, yeah. I was actually with my dad. He borrowed a plane at that time, and we took a flight up to Elk Point of all places. And I still remember it was a cold, snowy, but a beautiful, you know, sunny winter day coming into Elk Point, and I can still remember everything about that morning. And it was magical, it really
Oh yeah.
was.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, what did that feel like?
Yeah,
Uh,
it was magic. You know, your face is pressed against the window there. You're peering out, and there's just it's almost information overload because they're you know you're watching what you know Dad's doing and flying and that aspect, and there's you know, you're up there, you're up with the birds, you're looking out over everything, going, wow, like this is absolutely incredible.
it's definitely a different perspective, eh? It's not like when
Yeah,
you're on the ground and you're driving on the highway, or it's a completely different perspective, eh?
yeah, it totally is.
So you actually worked to get your private pilot's license out of Flagstaff Regional.
Regional is very passionate about aviation, which is fantastic. So, you know, you'd run into somebody, oh yeah, how's your training going? Or, you know, there's always dialogue and encouragement. So that aspect was fantastic. Um, the worst part probably was the satellite school aspect of it because you're kind of at the whim of someone that was coming from elsewhere to teach you. So that
Hmm.
made it a little bit more difficult at times. But just being able to fly in a small town airport, you know, you're not waiting for taxi clearances, you're not waiting on the ground for all these things. You know, you get up, you go, and you concentrate totally on flying and learning the aircraft and everything about it, as opposed to worrying about you know radio work as much. You know, if you're flying out of a bigger center like you know Springbank, huge amount
Hmm.
of training there out of Calgary, and it's I've talked to guys that've done training there, and they spend a good portion of their training just sitting on the ground waiting.
Oh,
You know,
wow.
there's
So,
none of that in Flagstaff Regional.
no, that's the beauty of having wide open spaces, eh?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, and did you have access to a plane at that point, or?
Not at that point.
Oh, so that
Not
made
quite
it,
yet.
that
Made
would
it a
have made
little
it
tougher.
difficult too, eh?
Yeah, they were bringing down they had their own aircraft there. Uh, I went through a number of different operators because they'd come, they'd start a satellite school, then they'd kind of disappear, and another one would come along. So that was tough. So you're always learning new people and not necessarily new aircraft, but just different ways of doing certain things. But for quite a while there, eventually, Dad did get a small airplane because he really wanted to continue flying,
Yeah.
and that did help a lot. Towards the end, I was able to do a bit more time building in that.
Oh, for
But
sure. Yeah, you
yeah,
gotta, like as they say, you gotta get your reps in. You gotta have your time. You gotta have your time in the plane, right? There's no other way to develop.
yeah, absolutely.
So how did learning to fly locally shape your journey?
You know, it taught me a lot. You know, it gave me a bit more they call it stick and rudder type feel to things, especially once I you know learned to fly off of grass airstrips. Like I was getting all sorts of experiences guys that you know were stuck in the city places doing their training weren't getting. You know, lots of low level flying. You'd go out, try and find your friends out combining, you know, navigating by rivers and roads and just building time. And, one single short strip, you have to learn how to fly crosswinds. You have to learn how to fly with adverse weather and do a lot of weather planning because, we're not, we don't have any kind of weather station or anything like that. So you're looking at the charts, you're figuring